being in the public eye and doing something performative is that people will always be very, very quick to tell you if they don't like something, or if something's put their nose out of joint, or they think you're wrong about something. They will immediately get in touch.
It just got too much, and in the end, too many alarm bells were ringing. I just thought, I can't go on like this. It's horrible, because if you've asked someone to stop doing something and they haven't stopped doing it, then that's bullying. End of story.
The worst thing I probably said to people was told people to kill themselves without a second thought, really. Like I say, I don't really think into it. I just sort of say what I say, and then that's it, and then log on the next day and whatever, forget about it.
Nearly 4 billion people worldwide are now using social media. It's revolutionised the way that we communicate, work and socialise. But nowadays it seems we are warned more about the dangers of the internet more than the benefits. And that's for good reason. While we often warn children about cyberbullying, adult victims are often overlooked. By definition, cyberbullying is a form of harassment that employs electronic forms of contact. Online bullying statistics encompass a variety of shapes and forms of this aggressive behaviour: hate speech, sexual remarks, stalking, trolling and online ridicule are all forms of cyberbullying. The adults most vulnerable to this type of harassment are those in the public eye. But what does it feel like to be a victim? And what makes people feel entitled to send people online abuse? I'm Henry Tomlinson, and this is From the Playground to the Cloud. Some of the stars hitting the headlines recently are participants of Love Island. One such contender, Molly May, was forced to seek therapy after receiving abuse online. This follows the suicide of 2 former contestants, Mike Thalatis and Sophie Grandin. ITV have since been forced to change their aftercare to better protect contestants once they leave the villa.
Clearly still being abused. When you look at these statistics, then surely it is time for that responsibility, that authority, that privilege to be removed.
Behind the headlines, journalists who voice their opinions publicly can also receive online backlash. Richard Spur is a journalist and broadcaster from LBC Radio and Notts TV. Richard isn't shy about voicing his opinion, but this can often lead to unwanted consequences. When you are doing your job in the public eye of radio news or TV news, do you ever receive messages from people online that could be considered hateful
or malicious? Yeah, I do. And I think the thing about being in the public eye and doing something performative is that people will always be very, very quick to tell you if they don't like something, or if something's put their nose out of joint, or they think you're wrong about something. They will immediately get in touch. It's much more unlikely that anyone will get in touch to say, actually, I really like this, or, I think you're great because of X, Y, and Z. They do that, and so when that does happen, it's extra especially nice, because that, it's only one in a few thousand that will ever put themselves out to do that. I mean, personally, I've got, what I describe as figuratively quite broad shoulders, so I really don't tend to get offended or let it bother me if people say things, which frankly they don't very often.
And particularly focusing on the ones that might have upset you, how would you say it would affect you in your own life?
I think what it might do is affect, well, firstly, I think you have to look at who sent it. Is it somebody who you respect? Is it somebody whose opinion actually counts for anything? If that is the case, then I think you do have to take that criticism seriously and act upon it. If it is just somebody who anonymously is throwing mud at you, and of course there are a lot of cowards out there on social media who hide behind a wall of sort of cybernetic anonymity. If it's somebody you don't know or you don't respect, or who is just simply trying to get themselves a little bit of exposure by doing that, then I really think that you have to try and discount it. That's easier said than done. We're all human beings. We've got souls and feelings, and people do get offended. But I think the longer you've been in the business, the more you realise that people just do things to get a little bit of attention for themselves. One thing I would say is that it can be quite derailing and distracting to get a very negative message in the middle of a programme. So we're talking here not about telly, because that doesn't happen, but on the radio, because you see all your own text come through and your own tweets come through, and if you get one during a show, that can be a little bit sort of irksome and maybe knock you off your stride a little bit. The other way of dealing with it is by reading it out and actually taking that person to account and pulling to pieces, if you can, what they've said. But
Richard has shared with me some of the tweets that he's found most personal. Both of these seem to be politically motivated. One user called him a
Richard Spur is a vile Tory stooge, pass it on.
while another called him
Richard, why be so negative? Have some belief in this country. People like you are scaremongering. Richard, that man before the news has insulted Leave voters. Just because he didn't know what he was voting for does not mean nobody knew. I did a lot of research before I voted Leave. He must have been a bit thick not to know what the single market is.
But while the majority of media attention remains fixed on those in the public eye, everyday victims can be often overlooked. At the age of just 27, Daniel has already been a victim of years of cyberbullying. His experiences have been varied, from what he considers to be mild to more sinister.
So, Daniel, can you tell us about your experience with cyberbullying?
Experience with cyberbullying is quite a varied one, really. I would say I first experienced it at around 15 when I was at school, in an era where cyberbullying was kind of just about being talked about, if you like, at that time. It constituted people writing abusive things about me on social networking sites, stuff that actually, now I understand it better, would be libelous by today's standards as well, stuff that just was not true about me whatsoever. And that was kind of the first experience, really. I've had bits and pieces with it over the years, people sometimes just saying things, maybe sometimes it was out of character, sometimes it was just because they were drunk or whatever. But the most shocking thing that happened to me, cyberbullying-wise, was an instance of cyber stalking.
The Crown Prosecution Service now recognises cyberstalking as a crime. It can occur on social media, chat rooms, and other online forums. Behaviour in that any way attempts to locate personal information about a victim, communicate with the victim, as a means of maintaining surveillance of a victim, or damage to the reputation of the victim, is defined as cyberstalking. Daniel knew his cyberstalker, but that didn't make his ordeal any less difficult.
It just got really out of hand. It just became scary, really, in the end, because I've never experienced anything on that scale before, and you don't know what to do. You read about it happening to people, but you never think it'll happen to you. And in the end, I've had to just block that person. But it's certainly contributed to depression. It contributed to me being very wary around people. I have to scrutinise a lot more when I meet new people for the first time. And, as much as you have to do that anyway, it's something I'm feeling I'm having to do that bit more because of it.
Daniel's stalker sent him frequent and unwanted messages. While comments such as "morning handsome" may seem inoffensive, they were persistent and continued even after he asked them to stop. These soon progressed to declarations of love. Other messages included phrases such as "I hate to think of you as someone else." Daniel's bully was motivated by obsession and infatuation, but I wanted to find out what other factors motivate those behind the screen. Getting someone to admit to being an online troll was difficult, but after tracing tweets online, I finally found someone willing to talk.
Why do you feel like you can send horrible things to people online rather than say it to them their face in person?
Well, I'm in the safety of my own home. I feel like it's a lot easier to do so because, they don't know where I live, they don't know who I am, so really I can just say anything I want and there's no repercussions.
Do you not feel bad about what it might cause to people's own mental health issues?
I never really think about that, to be honest. Sort of just say my stuff and, just leave it at that, and don't really think about other people, to be honest.
But studies have found there can often be severe consequences for victims of cyberbullying. A study by Bullying UK found that 5% of cyber victims had self-harmed as a consequence, while 3% had attempted suicide at least once. For those who are found guilty of the most extreme cyberbullying, including stalking and harassment, they can face up to 10 years in prison. I wanted to know how this bully chose his target.
When you know people and you say, mean stuff to them, like they could probably tell other people that that maybe you do like, and then they might judge you for it. But if you do it to people that you don't know, then it's obviously far easier because they don't know anyone that you know. And, like I said before, when you're in the safety of your own home, they don't know where you live, they don't know who you are, so there's no harm in it, really.
Are there any platforms that you think is easier to send messages on than others?
I think definitely on like when you play video games and stuff, because like the online platforms on there, they allow like voice chat for sort of anyone who wants to play, really. And so in that voice chat, you can be open to anyone from anywhere who's got a like microphone that can talk or whatever.
Does the ability to be anonymous sort of encourage you to be able to send messages?
I think definitely, because I feel if you do it to people that you know, they might tell other people that you also know that maybe are your friends, and then they might say stuff about you, and then that might, look bad on you. But if you do it to people that you don't know, then the anonymity with regards to that just sort of makes it a lot easier, and, just try not to think about it, really.
According to statistics, global cyberbullying awareness stands at 75%. While this could be considered an achievement, it does not mean that any less people are becoming victims. But where does the responsibility lie? I asked both victims what would help them feel safer online.
I think there almost needs to be the sort of health advice that maybe we have about things like alcohol and cigarettes, because in certain circumstances, the bad side of social media can be just as dangerous.
And I think when I have children, I'm certainly going to be able to talk about a lot of this, because it will help them, because the world's going to evolve more digitally, I think, as time goes on. And I'm sure that my children will have experiences with it, and it'd be great, if I can say that, for me to be able to say, well, look, when I was your age, I went through a similar thing. I know how to get you out of this. I know how to get you through it. And if I can turn that into a positive, then that would be great.
But would these precautions actually halt the hate?
Do you remember the last time you sent someone a hurtful message online?
Earlier today, actually. I called them effing loser, and said that no one likes them and they should probably kill themselves. Yeah.
With our usage of social media constantly on the rise, the opportunities to receive hate are also increasing. While social media giants such as Facebook and Instagram are promising to do more to crack down on online trolling, they are far from coming up with a concrete solution to the problem, meaning more people like Richard and Daniel will continue to become victims.